Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to a lovely Monday evening. How are you? I, of course, am your Bill Sylvie, the Dungeon Delver host, and I hope you're having a positively fantastic one. It is good to see you, and it is good to be seen by you, and I hope you had a really, really great weekend. I had a pretty good one. It was quiet. It was relaxed. I enjoyed myself, and I think, now, I could be wrong about this, but I think I finally got an arrangement for lights that I am finally totally satisfied with. The shadows are coming in a little bit higher up, but honestly, the lights set out at an angle are lighting up the room. I don't look like a bottle of orange juice anymore. And I think it's pretty good. Derek Mann, greetings. John Stewart, Keller, Vaughn Gifford, Dirty History and Hobbies. The Dungeon Minister, who's looking forward to the and more tonight. Well, I will bring you and more tonight. And we're at 4,750 subscribers now. So welcome those of you folks who strolled in this weekend and decided to pull up a chair. I'm glad you did. And I just want to remind you folks that this live stream is brought to you by our friends at Hellebarde Games. Hellebarde makes the kind of adventures that they'd like to play, whether it is old school, whether it is 5th edition, or whether it is Castles and Crusades. Old school is in play at the table, and you can check them out at DriveThruRPG or on their website, hellebardegames.com. And if you like what we do, folks, if you like what we do, please do support our sponsors. And if you really like what we do and you're just driving past here, you're just swept along on the winds of YouTube, you're pushed along by its currents, and you haven't already, please click the subscribe button in the icon for notifications, and you'll find out whenever I'm doing a live stream or when I drop a new news video and any other fun stuff that we do around here. And if you'd like to support the show in other ways, for as little as $2 a month on YouTube or $1 a month on Patreon, you can become a YouTube subscriber, or rather a YouTube member, or a patron on Patreon. At the $10 level, whether you're on YouTube or you're on, I almost said Subscribe Star, on Patreon, guess what? Every month, you will receive, written by myself or my co-host, a first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons mini adventure. That's right, a short form module written for first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons that you can slip right into your campaigns. And hey, if you're one of those people who prefers OD&D or basic Dungeons & Dragons, or even later editions of Dungeons & Dragons, just a little bit of extra work, you still get a great module out of the bargain. And isn't that worth the price of admission? At least if you're going to support that level. I happen to think it is, but hey, I'm me. I've got a bias. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment below and tell us what you liked about it. If you didn't like the video, give it a thumbs down. Leave a comment below and tell us what you didn't like about it. But anyway, what's going on in the dungeon tonight? Oh, you know, stuff. But speaking of the dungeon, it's Monday, and we have a new dungeon diorama. Let's look in on what's going on inside the caves, the caverns, the castles, the crypts. So we have here, this must be a truly high-level party with a magic user, and I suppose she could be a thief, an illusionist, another magic user herself, or just a fighting lady who is so confident in her puissant skill of arms that she goes into the dungeon armed with a dagger. And what are they squaring off against? A dreaded water weird. That's right. One of my favorite monsters, the water weird, is right there squaring off against the adventurers in the dungeon, and that is some beautiful Dwarven Forge terrain. Those two pieces were painted by a friend of mine, and the fountain that the water weird is in was painted by yours truly. And this, so the two minis, this is a Ralpartha mini, which I don't think is in production anymore. And over here we have a Reaper mini, and in the middle, that is an Otherworld water weird. And I love that fountain piece because it comes in 4 pieces. You have the fountain, actually 5 pieces if you count just kind of a generic plastic base, because we have the fountain, we have a round dungeon tile made of metal that it actually sits on, and we have both a clear, undisturbed pool and the water weird lashing out. And I love it. I absolutely love it. So that's what's happening. Will these brave warriors survive? I think if they're by themselves in a dungeon taking on a water weird, they might have the moxie. But hey, let's move on to other stuff. So, I missed the comment about Dragon Magazine 83. I know that there are like, oh, just roll the hit and do 1 to 3 plus any strength bonus. And that sort of thing. I know there's lots of other ones, but I just wanted to show that it was doable in the middle of a game without totally breaking everything. I'm thinking, I'm feeling this is kind of a nice-ish view over here. I'm thinking about having it on the table from now on. What do you guys think? I could get the camera a little bit closer, wouldn't have to fart around with the focus so much, just let autofocus do its thing. But you guys tell me what you think. Diorama. I like that, Robert Phillips. That's very cool, very funny. So I did have something really frustrating and annoying, and this actually happened Friday night, and I really should have brought a piece in here to show you guys. So a couple of things. First of all, I am honestly, strongly considering starting a second channel that is just dedicated to crafting stuff in D&D. Specifically 3D printing and miniature painting. If that's something you guys would like to see or you'd like to support, let me know in the comments. I'll put it out to the community. It can be a whole different channel, a completely different vibe. But let me tell you something. I am working on a Project X. And last week I talked about it. There's a pillar that I'm 3D printing one of right now. It's about this tall, and it's at its base, it's slightly canted inwards. At its base, it's 1.5 inches square. I do have extra cameras, Gumby. And so I have this large format 3D printer, and I thought, I can arrange all of these now that I've got one good one to print. I can just arrange this and I can print. How many can I fit on here? Why, I can do 3 at a time. And so I did. So I started the print, and I could hear my printer wheezing and groaning as it was doing its job. And when I went out the next morning, what met my eyes almost moved me to tears. The prints had gotten probably 95% done. Now, let me explain a little bit about 3D resin printing. 3D resin printing roughly works. There's a build plate that raises and lowers on a z-axis. Every time it comes down, it pushes against the bottom, the clear bottom of a tank of resin. An LED light, ultraviolet LED light, briefly shines up through the bottom, illuminating a single slice of the thing you're printing, a layer. It's a stack of cured layers, and every flash of the UV light cures another layer of resin onto the previous layer. The culprit here is the resin. To be brief, this print job that ran for 8 hours ran out of resin. There was not enough resin in the tank for it to finish the job at about 95%. The printer's dumb. The printer doesn't know. It's not like your inkjet printer or your laser printer at home where it'll start screaming and say, I need more toner. It just happily acted like it was still printing. I was very sad when I got up and saw that I had wasted an enormous amount of resin on 3 wrecked pillars. So that kind of went askew. But I'm going to keep them. I've washed them, I've dried them, I've cured them. I'm going to keep them. And the reason I'm going to keep them, and I'm going to set one in here, and I'm going to set the other 2 out there as reminders. Just because I have a great big build plate, it does not follow that what I want to print will get enough resin to be printed. They could be a show giveaway. Maybe I'll do that with one. I like that, Fuchsia. I like that. So I was disappointed. So I went back to printing them one at a time. Instead of getting 3 in 8 hours, it's 3 in 24 hours. A tactical mech combat and fire inspired by 80s cyberpunk anime. I already love it. You said all the words. You just called me on the phone and said, pizza, chocolate, ice cream, good beer, bikini model. How do I sign up? That sounds amazing. That sounds absolutely amazing. Bacon, right. Fuchsia says bacon. So anyway, it kind of inspired me. I thought, you know what? There's a lot of 3D printing channels on YouTube, and they're all incredibly slick. I see these guys, and it like, how do they do this? Why do they do this? They'll do this time lapse of a 3D print going. There's no hood on the printer. The printer is sitting in the middle of this beautiful studio with hexagon LED tiles on the walls and all this great lighting. And it just, they've got a $5,000 was gifted to them by Elegoo printer that's got like a 30-inch by 30-inch base. And they're printing a new girlfriend. And then they're saying, well, if you're going to invest $20,000 in a printer, this is pretty good, I guess, And I'm like, no, dude, show me how people really print. And that's what I'm thinking of doing with this channel, with a new channel or a new series of videos. That you guys are going to see the kind of setup that you'll probably have. Because you're like me. You're a hobbyist. All right? You're not, you don't have a studio with an overpressure air system. If you're like me, you're out in your garage, bent over a workbench, huffing organic chemical fumes. Not because you want to, but just because that's how it goes. So we're going to talk about that. Well, that's just it, Orbital Air, and you don't need that kind of money. But I'm getting off topic. Let's talk about good stuff. Let's talk RPG news. No, not the RPG news that I talked about today. This is old school, and this is this is pretty darn cool. So this came to me. Actually, it was Don McVitie that sent this to me. So, speaking of $5,000 to $20,000, have you got a little bit of extra cash to blow? If so, let's check this out. The Gary Gygax estate, not like some box of TSR things that Gary signed, not stuff like that. The Gary Gygax estate is currently being auctioned on the Trove, which of course is Paul Stormberg's RPG auction concern. So I want you guys to check this out. So this is scrolled up too far. Presenting the Gary Gygax estate auction. This little tidbit dropped yesterday. This auction will include over 250 lots with some of the rarest and most sought-after novels, game books, war games, board games, role-playing games, toys, and miniatures, as well as gaming fanzines, newsletters, and magazines. Included will be catalogs, newsletters, and magazines produced by TSR, GDW, and Nippy. That's New Infinities Printing something. I don't remember what the I is. These include Gary's author comp copies and comp copies he received as president of TSR, many games still in their original shrink wrap, TSR, GDW, Nippy, and many more. Among the special items are a never bound, never folded backgammon board by legendary TSR artist Dave Trampier from the Dragon number 15 in June of 1978, signed and autographed copies of products, several product catalogs and art slides sent to Gary for review, D&D cartoon slides, early character sheets and records, including Gary's own copy of Character Archaic by We Warriors that was distributed by TSR in 1976. The very special items for the auction include a huge assortment of TSR letterheads, stationery, memo forms, envelopes, and more, as well as numerous TSR, DDEC, and Nippy business cards from 1976 to 1987, TSR matchbooks, pens, buttons, magnets, stickers, and internal TSR documents and reports. The featured items include an artist-signed first print copy of the AD&D Monster Manual, My Heart Be Still. An in-house mapping guidelines booklet from 1983, Grenadier solid gold line promotional gold-plated miniatures. Woo! Our 6th to 384th incarnation of Big Beast Tomb, AD&D tournament from 1984, TSR's in-house medieval campaign newsletter, Le Chalane Chronicles, and Gary's own bronze 1977 TSR Lizard Man logo belt buckle still in its original bag. Bookmark the link below to bid on the remarkable items up for auction. Auction begins on Sunday, August 20th, 2023. Auction ends Sunday, August 27th, 2023. And then there's a link to the eBay site. That is tremendous. That is tremendous, and it might as well be on Mars or at the bottom of the Marianas Trench for as in reach it is to me. But that's not a complaint. I just think that's an amazing bit of news. Now, I of course have a few collector's items myself, things that have just kind of fallen into my lap over the years. Like for example, there's all my OD&D books that are autographed by Gary and Dave, and in the case of Tracy Lesh, where appropriate, Tim Kask, Jim Ward, Rob Kuntz. I've got his autograph on some of them. I've got Gary's autograph on my Dungeon Master's Guide. I've got Tom Wham signed my Monster Manual. I've I've got a lot of autograph stuff is what I'm saying. And these are very cool. These are very neat. If you have the means, by all means, go for it. This is history. Now, personally, I'm going to get to that, L. Thank you for bringing that up. Personally, I think your best bet, unless you're a collector, is just enjoy what you've got. I mean, because I game with all my stuff, right? Before I got duplicates, I just got drowned in duplicates. I used to game with my autographed OD&D books. But that's just me. So L brings up an important question. Do we have any update on Ernie Gygax's condition? The last I heard, he was still in hospital, but he did put out a Facebook update. He seems to be keeping his spirits up. As I find out more information, I'll share it with you guys. Robert Phillips asks, what's Rob Kuntz like? I only met Rob a few times. I found him to be an interesting dude. Good D&D player, friendly enough guy. But I've emailed back and forth a little bit of him, you know. I mean, I'm not, I'm friendly with him, but I'm not, you know, we're not like friends. We don't email or call every week or anything like that. He's a nice enough guy, you know. So if you want cheap plastic minis and you don't want to be bothered to paint with them, you don't want to be bothered painting them, your best bet is to just go on eBay and buy lots of D&D minis. Some of their character minis aren't bad, but let me tell you what, go with D&D minis for your hordes of things, right? You know, for $2, $4, something like that, for a couple of orcs, a couple of gnolls, whatever. For characters, actually, I believe it's WizKids makes a line of pre-painted character minis. They're not like the random pick. They're actually painted really well. So just go cheap for those, and then for more expensive ones, do or rather for characters that people actually want to look at, more expensive ones. I'm sorry, for more detailed ones, characters that people want to look at. I would seek out the WizKids personalities. I can't think of what they're called off the top of my head. Hail, Michael Connor, Unbreaded. I had heard that, Michael. I had heard that about them. But that is what I would recommend if you're not going to 3D print. Now, I know I was just bitching about 3D printing. And this is something I'm going to bring up on either the 3D printing channel or in crafting videos I do about 3D printing. But here's the thing. Generally, when you're printing character-sized minis, you know, about yay big, you get something like a Mars 2 Pro or a Mars 3. It's $189, and you can knock out 6 to 9 monsters just making vats of monsters over and over again. You can do it all day long. Couple 2 or 3 hours to print out a whole raft of monsters, scrape them off, peel them off the supports, wash them, wipe them down, cure them, paint them, lather, rinse, repeat. Now, you might be thinking, but Bill, what about character minis? That's an easy one too. That's an easy one too. Hero Forge, and it may not just be Hero Forge. There could be other companies that do online 3D minis as well. But build your character there and then buy the STL, $7. You can print out a tabletop mini. You can print out a nice statuette, and just like your monsters, you can paint them up however you want. Hey, Todd, how you feeling, my friend? So that's my suggestion. That is absolutely my suggestion. And printing hordes of minis and painting them is actually a really good way to get painting technique down. Mage Knight minis were good. My problem with Mage Knight minis is they're on that silver dollar sized wheel clicky base thing. I've got a Mage Knight mini somewhere over there. I think it's on the Shelf of Glory, actually. And it's like Lex Luthor in a prison jumpsuit. And I remember seeing it and going, oh my gosh, that's Walter White. It was like Walter White in his lab clothes. So I snagged that out of a bin, and I worked an X-Acto knife under it, and it turns out it like there wasn't even any glue residue. It's almost like it was pressed onto the little clicky disc. So I got that off, tossed the clicky disc, and I have a Walter White mini now. But the problem, the problem with the Mage Knight ones, I mean, if you buy lots, yeah, you're golden. Don't, you can just pick and choose. I need an ogre. Just look through Mage Knight on eBay. Oh, there's one, $2, $4, $5. I want a dragon. There you go. But the problem is, of course, if you were buying Mage Knight back in the day, blind draw. I mean, that was the problem with the Wizards D&D minis. There you go, Dungeon Minister. Yeah, you just pop that off. Yeah, the last time we were playing face-to-face HeroClix, we were Hero System. We were using HeroClix. We always like to play in the Marvel setting. So yeah, it's like, Spider-Man mini. There you go, pre-painted and everything. Punisher. There you go. I still grab stuff off Thingiverse. It's all free, and it's awesome. I actually, though, I'll be honest. I don't have a problem paying for an STL because it's as many as I want. Did I move it? I guess I did move it. But I had that Battletech Japanese Marauder. I can print those till the cows come home. Right? I had heard that they're minimizing the Firstborn Marines and they're making it Primaris only, which sucks. I mean, Beaky Marines were so cool. They had so much atmosphere. Yeah, the first Space Marine had that football helmet with a beaky weasel face on it, and that big combi rifle assault bolter with a bayonet on the end. You know the one I'm talking about. That thing just oozed style, as opposed to, the Marvel superhero stuck the landing, sky beam behind me poses that they've got now. Be well, Dungeon Minister. Didn't D&D make minis? I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, TSR themselves didn't start making minis until sometime in the 1990s, but that wasn't that long. The chainmail line of metal miniatures that TSR / Wizards of the Coast was putting out late in TSR's life came on 1-inch, 25 millimeter Slotta bases. They were fine. Grenadier minis were always on kind of funky little humpy bases that were not that big. Those were about the size of a kidney bean, but the minis tended to be smaller and it wasn't that big of a deal. Plus, you can crazy glue them to a washer. Throw a little flock on it. Boom, you're done. But Partha, Grenadier, going back even further, you had Heritage. Gosh, who else? Perrin. Had a few different mini companies. I'm not sure about that, L. Armorcast, yeah, Armorcast. But yeah, there were a lot of companies that made quote unquote official Dungeons and Dragons minis until TSR. Well, I mean, they started with minifigs, then they went to Grenadier, then they went to Ralph Partha, then they went internal, and after internal it was Wizards of the Coast, and then Wizards of the Coast internal. Fun fact, and not a lot of people know this, there was a very, 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 very brief window when Wizards of the Coast made metal Star Wars minis for D20 Star Wars before they switched over to Star Wars minis. Good night, Todd. Be well, my friends. Be very well. We'll be praying for you, buddy. Take care of yourself. No, nobody does, Michael. I completely understand. How long before? It's funny. This came up on Twitter the other day because somebody showed, and I hate that the appellation 3D printing is assigned to anything that involves a machine moving and putting anything down on something. That's a 3D printed house. That's a 3D printed car. That's a 3D printed airplane. And it's kind of the point that even like defense contractors like Boeing will say, by leveraging 3D printing, we're making the F-35 even faster and lighter. And I'm like, you're not 3D printing. Those are CNC milling machines, the same ones you've been using since the end of the Second World War. You're not 3D printing. You're not fooling anybody. But to get back to the question about AIs and 3D printing, so this short video popped up, and it was a robot. That is, it was a 6-axis, basically a 6-axis gigantic Dremel that was moving around a block of marble, slowly carving a rather beautiful image. And as I pointed out, somebody had to load a CAD file that the computer controlling the milling drill could understand, so it would know where to go next. The box that thing's attached to didn't just decide one day, I want to carve a statue from marble. Please bring me a hunk of marble. It had to have someone's input. Somebody had to load the 3D file in it, had to position the block just so, and then kick the printing job off. Now, can an AI create 3D objects? Yes. But all this requires user intervention. But this has been a few years ago. Somebody sat down with a AI chat program. If you sit down with ChatGPT and say, help me write a small text adventure in the Forth programming language, Forth, it'll do it. It'll take you through the steps. Code that is used to create STL files or G code for filament printers is just text. It's not like a binary that a computer has to execute. It reads it, says, print head down, heat up filament, move this far, move that far, print head up. And it'll do that over and over again as it builds layers. So you can tell an AI chatbot, hey, create some G code with me, and it'll do it. But at the best, you're going to get a cube or a ball, because you've got to know where to take it. You've got to give it some kind of input. Midwife AI. I hadn't heard of a midwife AIL. But anyway, so that's there's an answer for you. Honestly, at the end of the day, if you want to create a mini and you want to do it in your own home, 3D print plus any of the repositories for models. Learn how to position them and adjust them the way you want them, just so, or be happy with what you get. And then print them out. Don't sit around waiting for an AI to come up with your solution, I guess is what I'm saying. But anyway, so let's talk. Let's talk about the cool stuff we've got coming this week, because we got some cool stuff coming this week. Tomorrow night, of course, is first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. That's right. So if you're new here, like if you're like, oh, what does this guy do? Well, you know, what's his deal? Tuesday nights. Well, first of all, 5 nights a week, I live stream about D&D stuff, classic D&D stuff most of the time, classic tabletop role-playing games most of the rest of the time, and then a little tiny, thin, narrow bit in there of maybe we'll talk about a new game from a cool company that's got good ideas, you know, like Gripnir Games. We had the guys from Gripnir Games on, and we had Steven from Gripnir Games, and enjoyed chit-chatting with him. We also, a couple of nights a week, we play classic role-playing games right here on the channel. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, you're going for that Critical Role kind of thing. No. We play classic tabletop role-playing games here. If you'd like to watch and listen and ask questions and that sort of thing, feel free to. 5 Nights at Bill's. Yeah, no killer animatronics. What can I tell you? But Tuesday night, tomorrow night, we're going to be back playing first edition AD&D. And what just a slam bang game we had last week. The party, we're playing Keep on the Borderlands, okay? Classic AD&D module. And the party waded in to the lair of the hobgoblins and threw down with the hobgoblin chieftain. Good stuff. Great battle. And as they were limping out, they have many wounded. Everybody's still on their feet. But they've had an encounter. And we'll find out what it is tomorrow night at 8:30. Be there. Well, 9 o'clock. Like I said, preamble ramble at 8:30. Games at 9 o'clock. Wednesday, guess what? Wednesday, Kyle's back. That's right. My Australian co-host, Kyle Schuwant, will be back, and we're going to talk about, I think we're going to take a bit of a dip into, possibly, I'll talk to Kyle about this, we might take a closer look at Rogues Gallery. And then Thursday night. Now, this is something that I had mentioned last week we were going to do last week, and we ended up not doing last week strictly because I didn't have everything together properly. But this week, we're going to have Bill T from Paint Minis Live, a great YouTube channel. You guys should subscribe to Paint Minis Live. He will be here, and we're going to talk about the whole saga of Azarath, the Red Dragon, and how he got her painted up, got her shipped back, how I glued her back on her base. Thank you, USPS, and all that jazzmatazz. So Bill will be here. That'll be a lot of fun. We'll talk to him. That's on Thursday. Friday night, remember when I said we live stream classic RPGs? Friday night, we will be playing some classic first edition, a Gamma World. That's right. Gamma World is too much fun, and you guys should come and hang out and watch us play some Gamma World. So that is the week ahead. And then, of course, Saturday, you can go find something else to do Saturday. I'm not going to be here. If you want to sit in front of your computers and stare intently at YouTube and try and coalesce the Bill Sylvie to come up on the screen, do your best. But barring an interstitial video that I might release during the day, I'm not going to be streaming. The boys are brushing their teeth one at a time. You mean like one of them is brushing his teeth and the other one's going to go in and brush his, or they're like picking out one tooth and then 1 minute on each tooth, because that could take a while. I got to be honest with you, Dirty History and Hobbies. So I was talking about this earlier today with Kevin. Kevin plays on Tuesdays and Fridays in First Edition AD&D and Gamma World. You, of course, know him as Tonstal and as Do Re Mi in each game, respectively. And he was mentioning he asked an AI multiple times to do something AD&D related for him, and it couldn't. It kept throwing 5 isms in there. And I'm not calling Kevin out. I'm not, because it will do the same thing. Right now, if you get a ChatGPT account and go in and say, make me a D&D character, it's not going to coalesce from your brain that you like original Dungeons and Dragons, or you like AD&D, or you like basic D&D, and make a character. It's going to generate a 5th edition D&D character for you, because the thing is trained on data sets. But, and this is the important part, I promise, my hands are not on the keyboard. I'm not seeing anything. If you make the pentagram of money, I can be summoned. Make a pentagram of super chats, and you can summon me. But anyway, here's the thing. The AI has to have its expectations massaged, if you will. You have to sit back and you have to tell the AI, okay, I like first edition advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and it will probably spiel something back at you about Gary Gygax, about the freewheeling nature of the game, a little bit of its history, all very on-point data. If you tell it, look, here are the constraints for creating an encounter or an NPC within first edition AD&D, and then start asking it for those things back, not just the one you gave it, but say, okay, here's how you make a character in first edition AD&D. This is an elf, and this is what the output will look like. It'll basically come back and say, gotcha. Okay, I got it. Make me a dwarf. It'll make you a dwarf character. Make me a magic user. Magic user. Make me an adventuring party led by a paladin. There you go. You have to put a little bit of work in. You have to put a little bit of work in. That is correct, L. You cannot. You can't put links in the chat, unfortunately. It is not a me thing, I promise. That's very cool, wonderful wizard game. Now, let me tell you guys something, and I mentioned this before. I couldn't code my way out of a wet paper bag. I have, over the years, gone to many people, and I've said, hey, you like classic D&D? Yeah, or not classic D&D. You like tabletop role-playing games? Yeah. Can you help me with a coding project? Absolutely. What do you want to do? Well, here's a chunk out of the Dungeon Master's Guide. Cool. Crickets. I'm not impugning anyone. People get busy. And I completely get it. It's not like I said, here's a sack of gold coins. Because I bet if I rolled up on somebody with some Krugerrands, they'd be like, let me just blow off my keyboard here and get to coding for you, Mr. Sylvie. But I understand. I totally understand. You sit down at ChatGPT. ChatGPT, write me a program that does this, and then quoted a block of text out of the Dungeon Master's Guide, that's sheer drudgery, and make it in Visual C. Make Visual C++. How about that? Okay. Whoop. Compile it, run it. And I've got a few utility programs that I do that with. Hello, Christopher Sims. So that's how I've used AI for first edition AD&D. You kind of got to give it just a friendly nudge again sometimes. So let me explain this in the little bit we've got left. So far, so good, Chris. I can't complain. It's a nice group of you folks listening out there. An AI uses a system of tokens to keep track of subject matter in your conversation. And it assigns a token to certain points, to certain talking points. It'll discard like and then or they will if it's not in context. It has to parse that information. and decide, what fits and what doesn't. But things like names, place names, major plot points that you might be going through. And when it reaches the 2048 token limit, ChatGPT, if you go ask ChatGPT, hey, how many tokens do you use in your system? It'll say 2048, roughly. Which is, somebody check me on this, but I think 2048 is 2 to the 12th. Is it 2 to the 12th or 2 to the 11th? Anyway, it's some square of 2. But when it runs out of tokens, it'll start to forget things. And it'll assign the token that it recycled to a new bit of data. So if you told it at the beginning of your conversation, hey, call me Bill. Although that's not exactly true with ChatGPT. ChatGPT now has a little box you can put like up to 1,500 words, things about me that it will constantly refer to, so it won't forget your name. But it, eventually it'll hit a point where it won't remember the data that you told it all the way at the beginning, and it's called hallucinating. It'll start to hallucinate. Like, I was working on a horror story and I was kind of prompting it for ideas just for my own entertainment. I'll never publish it. I'll never use it in an adventuring product. And I said, I didn't have time to scream before my car went over the edge of the ravine. And this was a long, meandering conversation I'd had with it before I came up with this cockamamie story idea that I kind of woven into our conversation. And it said, I'm sorry, as an AI chat program, all I can do is advise you to contact authorities. You have had a serious car accident. And so I said, take care, Chris. So I backed up and typed it in a different way, and it said, regardless of that, you've had a car accident. You should contact the authorities. Its memory of the horror story had completely broken down. So if you're going to use it for dungeon mastering assistance, you have to periodically remind it of where you're at and what you're doing. Like, you're working on a D&D adventure and then suddenly it starts throwing 5e things at you. Summarize your conversation in 4 or 5 paragraphs, reminding it that you're working in AD&D and that you need to stick to these strictures, and then hit enter and it'll say, oh, hey, thank you for the reminder. So that's basically how you train the AI. Maybe I'll do a video on that one day. Now, I know I've gone hard in the paint about AI art. It wasn't, the AI art is a different matter from AI text. AI text, I'm asking for worded solutions based on the things I've already told it, specifically worded solutions based on the things I've already told it. AI art is, I'm going to go out and collect bits of other images and kind of smear them all together to make something that looks like what you asked me about. And it's taking other people's art that's been uploaded to the internet. That's why there's a difference. So for funsies, for things to use, like in her, Perfect example. Perfect example. How many times have you been playing AD&D and you get to a point where you roll that random encounter in your dungeon and it's adventuring party? Even with something like Rogue's Gallery. I mean, Rogue's Gallery has a few created adventuring parties in it. And sure, they're not going to come up that often. But do you have time to go through and build a new one from scratch? You certainly don't have time to do it from absolutely zero. ChatGPT will do it for you as long as you've massaged it and got it ready to doing stuff in AD&D for you. It'll blah. Quick, give me an adventuring party, second level. They're led by a magic user. Blah. And it's got it. Or it'll write a program for you in any language you can ask. Fourth, you want to do that in fourth? You want to do that in Comal? How about J. Pascal? Visual ASM? I'm just kidding. There's no visual ASM. Not that I'm aware of anyway. ASM would be a tough nut to crack. I mean, so I have asked it sometimes. I have gone into ChatGPT and I've asked ChatGPT as a lark. Like, I don't tell it I'm pulling its chain. I'm just like, right. It's like, are you familiar with assembly language on the Commodore 64? Yes. Show me how to write a hello program in assembly language on the Commodore 64. Here's how you do it. Blah. Show me how to write a program that draws a 3D Garot shaded sphere on screen in the Commodore 64's high resolution graphics mode. It'll say, hold on a minute. That is a complex topic. You need to learn how to do it. But simple gears intermeshing with each other, program code where you're just throwing text around, it'll output stuff all day. And even some graphical stuff. I never tested it and ran it, but I have no reason to believe it wouldn't work. I once asked it to generate, do you guys remember GW Basic? It came with MS-DOS. I once asked it to generate in GW Basic a simple 3D ray casting engine that would let me move around a series of cubicle rooms and use a BMP called floor for the floor, a BMP called ceiling for the ceiling, and a BMP called walls for the walls. And it generated the code for me. I never tested it out. I always meant to, but it did it. But I never had... I never got a chance to try it out. So, as a tool to help, as a tool to help me with, I mean, I've been using computer tools to help me with D&D as long as I've had a computer. Hello, Sean Hall. And I'll never sit back and just say, be sitting at the computer, because I do play online nowadays for the most part. I'll never just type at it. My characters are in a cave, generate an encounter, enter, and then just read what it generates to them. That would be terrible. I'm not going to do that, and I have no interest in doing that. But for the heavy lifting, for getting stuff off my shoulders so that the game goes faster, and I'm not going, yeah, I have no problem. It's like any... AIs are like any other machine. They're either a benefit or a hazard. If they're a benefit, it's not my problem. I got the Blade Runner book boa. You guys could at least applaud. That is the Robotech strategy board game. I don't know. A friend of mine just said, here, you can have this. After he and his stepson glued all the minis together. There may be some that are not finished, but they're all just lying in there. They're not painted. I have, I bought on eBay just because I love, like, the Zentradi mix, the Glaug and the infantry pods. I always thought were just so cool looking, so much cooler looking than like the current BattleTech art. And I bought a backers booster. Where is it? Seeing if it's sitting around here somewhere. I don't see it, but basically it's an officer's pod Glaug and then like a recon pod and an artillery pod. But I've never played Robotech Tactics. That was that was really the last gasp of Robotech at Palladium Games. I'll have to tell you guys about my observations about that one of these nights. Yeah, the Japanese art of Robotech was gorgeous. The things that they took out of the sketchbooks, that deserves a deep dive. The Robotech RPG, but you guys will have to forgive me if I constantly call it the Macross RPG. But anyway, so we've got a lot of cool stuff coming up this week, guys. Like I said, we've got Bill T from almost said effing cool minis from Paint Minis Live. Bill T's going to be here on Thursday. Kyle's back on Wednesday. We got AD&D tomorrow. We got Gamma World Friday night. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a great week. You guys are going to have a lot of fun. Thank you all very much for stopping by tonight. I really appreciate it. I want to go get a shower before I have my AD&D game later tonight. I feel like the floor of a taxi cab. But anyway, everyone, please do take care of yourselves. Be good to one another. For goodness sake, be good to one another. I'll see you tomorrow night for some AD&D. But until then, keep your eyes peeled for that owl bear. Peace.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad, all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.